Hello friends, it's Kayla. I had a video idea that involved me buying a magazine from the 80s and seeing if there were any books in it and then reading those books. So that's what I did. I picked a random year, 1985, and I bought some magazines. We've got a Cosmo, we have a Rolling Stone, and we've got a Playboy. And as I was flipping through, just to see, like, I don't need to know what books came out in 1985 because I can Google that. I wanted to see what books were being promoted, what books were being reviewed, what books were being talked about, and it exceeded my expectations. Because what I found is two of these, which are these subscription things, you know, similar to the ones that still exist today, but they started back in the 70s. And you would just mail people some money and tell them what book you wanted. So this one is the Doubleday Book Club, and there's a whole bunch of books from, you know, authors that I've heard of before. There's even some books that I've read on here before, and then plenty of things I haven't heard of. And then there was also this one, which is a membership with the Literary Guild, and it also has some of the same books listed. And for the first 4 books, when you sign up for a membership, only cost you $1. So I looked through these magazines. I feel like we'll have some things to talk about in this video, style-wise, the types of books, the types of articles. Maybe we can even compare it to a currently published Cosmo magazine. But the #1 goal is to read the books that are featured. I think first I need to get into the 1985 mindset, and I can do that with my look. Most definitely the hair needs to be bigger, the lips need to be pinker, the colors need to be more vibrant, brows need to be thicker, the eyes need to be more colorful, the jewelry needs to be bigger, and I think we did it. I re-pierced my ear to get that in, and I couldn't get one through the other side. Now I don't think 1985 was quite scrunchy time, but like obviously that feels correct. If I were dressing up for an 80s dance, an 80s party, this is what it would be, even though this doesn't really represent people, how they were dressing every day in 1985. But I've definitely hit a good amount of things that are happening in here. Now, let me show you what I'm gonna be reading for this video. I have already read Pet Sematary, but what a fun excuse for a reread. And then his wife, Tabitha King, I've never read from her, but she wrote The Trap in 1984-ish, but it was featured in that article of recommendations. Or not recommendations, these are advertisements, like they're trying to sell these books. In one or both of the ads, I found Danielle Steele and Sydney Sheldon, who I also got my mom's help. This was my mom around 1985. My parents were living their best lives. A year after they got married, a couple years before they had kids, the perms were perming. So besides Stephen King, which my mom was directly responsible for me reading growing up, she helped me highlight a couple authors she has read from before. So we've got Full Circle and Master of the Game, which this just sounds up my alley. I'm not gonna end up reading both of these romances, but I figured I have to read a romance from 1985. So we have a Joanna Lindsey with Brave the Wild Wind, or a Kathleen E. Woodiwiss with Come Love a Stranger. Now those were in the ads themselves, and then there was some book reviews. So like new books coming out, check these out. And I found this one, which when I purchased, all of these were from thrift books, except for the one I already owned, the Stephen King. But this, I don't think there even was a cover, so I had no idea what I was in for. It's called Occasional Prose by Mary McCarthy, and it looks like this. And then of course I had to grab a couple silly ones. Of all of the titles in these ads, there were some ones that stuck out to me that sounded like they would be fun, ridiculous, like of their time. And I decided to pick up Men, an Owner's Manual, and Female Difficulties, Sorority Sisters, Rodeo Queens, Frigid Women, Smut Stars, and Other Modern Girls. E. Jean Carroll has a hand for a belt, so I couldn't say no to her. What an icon. Something fun is I also opened this up to my channel members. So we're doing a kind of book club where everyone reads a different book. Everyone picks something out of these ads, and then we're having a Zoom call where everyone can review them and pitch the book to other people. And for that, I'm reading Brave the Wild Wind. Speaking of female difficulties, I mean, it's trying to have a jacket on with this hair. It's making me so hot. You know who I look like? I look like every member of Poison or Whitesnake. Or, no, let's be real. I look like Dee Snider. Now I know what I'm going as for Halloween. No, speaking of female difficulties, it's opening up your Cosmo from May 1985, and it telling you that the diet that you should subscribe to, the 10-day appetite training that you should eat for breakfast. 1 baked potato. Here's the 10-day diet they recommend everybody. Day 1, 2, and 3, breakfast, potato. Lunch and dinner, vegetables. Snack, vegetables. Half an apple and 2 tablespoons of yogurt. Only if you do not use those 2 tablespoons of yogurt for your baked potato for breakfast. Day 4, breakfast, baked potato. Day 5, breakfast, potato. Day 6, cereal. We get cereal. And then after you learn about your baked potato diet, you flip the page and it's all the most delicious recipes you've ever seen that you're now not allowed to eat. I'm gonna give this a read and see what it has to tell me about female difficulties in the 80s, what the women were struggling with. Plot twist, it's not really about women. It's about women who want attention from men and why certain women get attention from men and how to get attention from men. It's also told very strangely. It's just dialogue. It's just all these conversations, fake conversations, real conversations. I don't know. It seems like it's satire. I'm lost. So this turned out to not be at all what I was expecting, which is probably a good thing because I was worried about like what conversations we were gonna have in here, but nothing was really questionable because it's not the book I thought it was. It's not the book that I originally thought it was. And then once I read the introduction, it still didn't end up being the book that I thought it was. So E. Jean Carroll is like a columnist. I guess she had a super long running or the longest running advice column in Elle magazine where people sent in their questions and she answered them. But this does not read like an extension of that. It's not advice, it's not opinions, it's kind of nothing. It's organized by the things that I told you, all the different categories on the front, but each section is just like a conversation. So it looks like this. It's like 3 pages of a conversation that she's either interviewing them, but she doesn't really have any like good questions or good answers. Like she's not really doing anything. She's just listening to them talk about their experience. So like we'll be in the Playboy Mansion talking about somebody who has a certain job. We'll be at the cheerleading tryouts for like the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, or we'll be at like a porn shoot. And she will just share a couple pages of a conversation, a one-sided conversation, just somebody sharing not even like facts about their job or an opinion about something. It's just like some random conversation. And then it doesn't turn into anything from there. Like she's not then adding commentary. She's not sharing an opinion on what we just read. She's just giving us some more context. Like this person is trying out for the cheerleading team. She talks about how much money she made. Talking about money makes me nervous. She picked up a piece of fruit and ate it in front of me. But I think this was valuable at its time because there wasn't like the internet and social media. When you think about it, cheerleaders and sorority girls, whatever, they are sharing their experience actively on TikTok and YouTube and Twitter and wherever. We are all in charge of our own social presence and how much we share and our own stories. But at this time, you only got to see a girl who is in Playboy when she was in Playboy. You only got to see her from somebody else's perspective, the photographer, the interviewer, whatever. So I think the appeal of this is to let the reader into spaces they could in no other way get access to behind the scenes at a beauty pageant, like a real raw conversation going on. Even if the conversation is nothing, of no consequence, doesn't actually say anything that interesting, you would have never witnessed that conversation unless E. Jean Carroll was just traveling around the country talking to people. And it's so unclear like why she's talking to people. And I guess it's like just for the book, like she was just going to talk to people to see what they had to say. But the fact that she doesn't share any like advice to the reader or any takeaways of her own, there's not even like an ending chapter being like, and these are all the women that I met along the way, and here's the things that I learned, and I hope that you now feel like less of a bystander and you see all of these women who are like famous and doing incredible things, like you don't feel like that is unattainable or that they are better or bigger. Like they're just people. They're just sitting around having conversations just like you. I really do wish there was more of her talking about her travels, like why she picked certain, like who she wanted to talk to and why, and what she personally gained and advice that she had to offer. But that's not what this was, so it's not fair of me to say that. I just don't see this as being something that would be published today, which is so interesting. I have started my next book, and it's Brave the Wild Wind. Now, this I didn't realize was historical fiction. Technically, anything published in the 80s, if it's set in the 80s, would be considered historical fiction. This is set in 1873, and we have a main character named Jessica Blair, and her father recently died and left her this land. She has a lot of experience. She takes care of these animals. She does a lot, but people don't take her seriously. People don't think that she can take care of herself. And then her mother comes back, who she hasn't been with the family since like Jessica was born, because I guess she was a terrible person in her father's eyes and her father kicked her out of the house. But now her mother, who she doesn't even know, is coming to the house and she's like, I am here to take care of you. Jessica's like, I don't need to be taken care of. And she's brought this guy along with her to watch over Jessica. She's like, you need to keep tabs on her, make sure she's staying in line. You are in charge of her. He's resistant to the idea, but obviously things are going to happen between them. All right, let's talk about Brave the Wild Wind. First, let's address what I think is the only other like semi-80s vibe shirt that I own until I go digging in the depths of my chunky knitwear collection, but we'll have to do that later in the fall and winter. I think it has a little bit of like Who's the Boss energy, when what I really want is Cosby Show energy and Growing Pains energy and just the knitwear of it all. I need this one. They're all iconic. Ooh, also Facts of Life, like that arrow kind of sweater. I need one of those. Anyway, I finished Brave the Wild Wind, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that I gave a historical romance 3.5 stars. The first half of this, I was like kicking my little feet, having a great time. I thought the chemistry was great. I was starting to think like, am I okay? Should I be liking this? The second half went a little bit off the rails, had some conversations that were strange. I'm gonna spoil some of the books in this video. I don't know if anybody cares. They do get married at gunpoint. And then at the end, she like gets pregnant. That's why he forces her to marry him. But then they have a baby and they get a fortune and they live happily ever after. So the journey to get there was interesting. So at this time, if we look at the culture of it all in publishing, I'm specifically going to be talking about North America, and because that's where I live and where these books were published, there was definitely a rise in the 80s of women working more, being paid to work, being adequately compensated for work, and working outside of the home more than ever. Divorce was also on the rise. Did any of those things contribute to the type of historical fiction? I don't know. I think if you look at historical fiction in the 70s, people will say it was a lot of like brute, strong, huge, abusive men and meek and weak women. That was the type of historicals that were offered, that people were picking up. Perhaps there's a reason people were enjoying it. And in the 80s, there was a real push for women being more independent in the stories themselves, even though this one is in 1873. We're following Jessica, who owns like a ranch. Though her father owned it before her and he just recently passed and now she has it, she's clearly been in charge of things for a long time. She knows what she wants, she's outspoken, she, you know, orders people around, and she is getting everything done that she wants to get done. So when her father dies, she feels very strongly that she needs to continue to run the ranch and be independent, but her mother comes, who she hasn't seen since she was like a baby because her father was terrible and kicked her out of the family home. Also because she like cheated on him. I think that's what happened. It's been a minute since I've read this. We've already had the live show with all of the channel members. We did a Zoom call where everybody read a different book from this selection. I learned about so many things. I heard the plot of all of the things. It was super fun to go through it all. But so her mother brings this guy, Chase Summers, to the ranch, and they want to like take over the ranch and control Jessica, and Jessica refuses. So she ends up running away a lot. A lot of the book is spent with this nearby indigenous community. The things surrounding that like were mostly good, but then we got into some weird territory where some of the indigenous men were like, I'll leave my wife for you, you're so beautiful, and like you're all I want. And obviously it's just to establish how desirable, you know, the author wants us to see Jessica as. The language involved, I'm sure, is very questionable because her like name within the tribe was looks like woman, because she like dressed like a boy, and apparently somebody who like runs a ranch and is covered in dirt all the time and doesn't look traditionally feminine, and so they call her looks like woman. I don't know. So Chase comes into the picture, makes a lot of assumptions about Jessica. I can't remember exactly what words he used to describe her, but he implied, you know, that she gets around and that she isn't desirable to him. He's trying to resist her, but he finds out that she's a virgin, and then he likes her. The more I talk about it, the more, yeah, like it's questionable for sure. But it wasn't maybe as weird as I thought it would be, as many like uncomfortable things as I pictured. And also clearly they both want to be in this relationship, and maybe I'm forgetting how old they each are, but I liked them together. She was very resistant, but like pretending to be resistant because she wanted to be this strong, emotionally, I mean, a guarded kind of person. And so when she opened up and, you know, got married, even though she didn't want to, and had a baby, even though she seemed like she didn't want to, clearly she did. She did say all of the things that lead us to believe she is happy in this happily ever after. And they get all of this money for some reason at the end. All the bad people like die or go away. And I thought it was good. I don't know what that says about me. But next I'm moving on to Master of the Game, because I like books about games, and I just read the opening bit, and it's another historical fiction, which I didn't know. I don't know if it's going to bounce back and forth, I'm assuming, because I just read book 1, which is following Jamie in 1883 to 1906, and it was just about this guy named Jamie who grew up in Scotland, and he is going to, was it South Africa, to find diamonds, and he's working for this man, but he thought they were partners, and at the end of it he was like, give me all the diamonds, and Jamie was left with nothing. But the synopsis talks about a woman named Kate, and we did get like what felt like a prologue in 1982, and she's this older woman, I think she was in her 90s, and they were just like having a dinner to celebrate her, and I don't know how anything is related here. I don't know where we're going next. I don't know what the plot is at any point, but I'm learning about things, and I think it's fine so far, so I'll keep you updated on this. This book is fucked up. These people are so messy. It's like family drama for sure. Feels a little bit thrilling at the same time. And we're following 3, maybe 4 generations. So it started with that guy Jamie and what he was up to. And then he had a child, and we're following that child. And then that child has a child, and we're following that child. I don't know if there's another generation to come, but each of them has just like a very clear goal in their section, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get there. It's all about desperation. Like Jamie is desperate for revenge. Kate is desperate for her company to thrive. We have a character named Tony who is an artist, and he's so talented and he loves it so much. He said a quote I just read that I loved so much. On selling like his art for the first time, he said, it was a small piece of immortality. It was a way of living more than one life, of being in more than one place at the same time. And I just think that's such an interesting way of looking at creating something. I'm absolutely hooked, but it's also pretty dense and relatively slow, but it's all just so intricate and interesting, and I want to stay up like all night reading this, but I have to go to bed. So I'll update you on the second half. I can only imagine what these people are going to do from here, but I can't wait to see the dynamics of all of these family members. So I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, I'm just running out of the house. I'm sorry, this will be fast, but this was the most soap opera book I've ever read. It was wild. It would have taken place over like 6 seasons of a show. It did do the 2 things I'm looking for. It was surprising and entertaining, but then it threw in a bunch of stuff that was just odd and too many tropes in the genre. That is why I read more modern thrillers nowadays, especially like the twins, the stolen identity, the only queer character being the villain. Like there was just some choices I didn't love about it. And I think what I like, I don't know if it's this author or thrillers at this time or books at this time or what, but Nobody cares about motivations. Like, if this was published nowadays, I feel like people would be asking, like, why did they really do this? Why did this person really go through with this thing? And every character is just like, because they wanted to be rich, because they wanted to be successful, because they wanted to be, like, there was really no reason behind anything, and also no realism, which is why it makes me feel like it's a total soap opera of a book. I'm giving it like a 3.75, and that's that. It's a super rainy day, perfect for sitting and watching a movie. This is going to be my first of a couple over the next couple months from 1985, because it's a pretty iconic year for movies. We've got, you know, The Breakfast Club, Back to the Future, The Goonies, Weird Science, Perfect, obviously, Teen Wolf, a variety of horror movie sequels that I've loved. There's a couple movies I just mentioned I haven't actually ever watched, so we will fix that. But so I've organized today to watch with some of my channel members Weird Science, which I've only ever seen once, but I know that I loved it in the moment. That would have been in the mid-90s that I watched it. I'm sure it doesn't hold up at all, but that's something that's so fun about my members' movie nights, is we get to talk about those things. And I grabbed a selection of treats invented in or made popular during the mid-80s. Obviously, we've got Reese's Pieces. Apparently microwave popcorn, which is perfect for a movie night. I also grabbed Nerds. Didn't know that that was a mid-80s experience. I haven't had Nerds since I think I was pregnant, because I ate way too many while I was pregnant. And then also this poster for Crystal Light just really did it for me. I didn't even know if they still made these, but they do. I grabbed the tangerine grapefruit, and I've never had this before. But so I'm gonna settle in, watch Weird Science, probably be absolutely horrified by what's going on, or delighted. I mean, anything can happen. Oh, it's a horrific color. Oh no! No, absolutely not. What a time. Uh-oh. 1.5, Adult Cat in the Hat, love the chaos. I'm still giving it like a 2. It got wackier than I expected or remembered. The time has finally come to read The Trap. I'm dropping off a selection of thrillers for my mom to read. She sent me the text. She said, I have no books left, so I need to drop some things off. And The Trap is in here, which she specifically asked for. I think I'll listen to the audiobook while she reads it physically, and then we can compare. This is not the update that I want to be giving or that you want, but maybe I can distract you with my shoulder pads. You can ignore the fact that I hated this, and also kind of skimmed it, and also didn't listen to the audiobook. There's no audiobook for this. Like, what was I thinking? So basically, it's at least 2 months since I've seen you. My mom had the book for a while. She had like no thoughts on it. She came over one day when I was doing a live show, so I'll insert a clip of her review. I think it was 2 words. Did you finish The Trap?
Which?
The Trap, the one by Tabitha King?
Trap. Oh, yes.
Did you like it?
The last half was okay. I kept feeling like they're talking about things I should know. Like it felt like a sequel.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah.
This was not the grand buddy read that I wanted it to be, because then it took me a month to get through it. And now it has been weeks since I've read it, and I have forgotten a lot. I do remember there was a screenplay in here because we're following a woman who's married to this man. They're having issues with the family, with the town, with kids. The book opens with her like encountering these bad men in the woods, and they have trapped this animal, the trap. And it's not a great scene. And then from there, it's just a snooze fest for 150 pages. And then when it's no longer a snooze fest and the trap comes back into it because she is now trapped, tortured, assaulted, along with her child. It's just too graphic and descriptive for me. And then also dull with her husband's screenplay being in here. It was lengthy. It doesn't look lengthy. It felt lengthy. So I started skimming it. And then sometimes I would just like look out of the corner of my eye when I was reading the actual plot, because I did not trust what they were going to do to this child in order to hurt the mother. I didn't think it was compelling. I didn't think it was well written. I didn't think it was interesting. I'm sorely disappointed in myself and my reading experience, but at least I've got shoulder pads. You know what else I've got? The last 3 published Cosmopolitan magazines. So I thought it'd be interesting for me. I don't know what's interesting for you. For me, it's apparently statistics and data, but I thought it would be interesting to compare what a Cosmo looked like back then as far as what the topics covered were compared to now. And I needed to purchase 3 to get like the same amount of pages as it used to be in a magazine. We all know the magazine industry is failing. It's a mess. My whole goal in life when I was a teenager was to be a graphic designer, like a physical graphic designer for magazines. Maybe not this that I just flipped to, which is about panties, or this weird woman and her perfume. Side note, do you think this still smells like perfume? Do I dare? It does not. I don't know what that smells like. I know some people love the smell of old books, and maybe that was just like old books times 100, but I don't. I don't like that smell. I don't get it. Anyway, that is what I wanted to do as a career. How do I just flip to another one in a girl in underwear? But then, you know, everyone was telling me, well, like the physical existence of art like this is completely going out. So you need to get a digital graphic design certificate. And I'm glad that I did, because that's what I do now. But I want you to think for a second in your mind, 1985, what kind of ads, what kind of articles, what topics are covered in here as far as women's issues, the things that women want to read about, and how do you think it has changed? This was 370 pages. Now, 38 years later, they run at about 100 pages. In my mind, Cosmo has always been like a sex and style kind of magazine. This was not really either, besides like the book within it, which is like a sexual tale. There's a couple of them at the back. There was not very many sex related articles. Meanwhile, like when I think of Cosmo when I was a teen, it was so sex focused, like tips about sex, descriptions, education, gossip. Besides those 2 stories and 1 mini spread, there was only 1 sex related article in 370 pages and only 3 fashion ads in the entire thing. Compared to now, there was still not as many as I expected. There was 5 sex-specific articles and 10 fashion articles or spreads. The focus of this was much more on body care. There were 8 skincare articles compared to just 1 in all of these combined. 5 tanning related articles, no tanning lotion mentioned or tanning beds or anything in the 2023 editions. There was 8 ads about shaving, 0 in the current day ones, 12 about hair compared to only 4 in the other ones, 8 ads about underwear, 0 ads about underwear, 6 about weight loss, again 0 current day about weight loss, 11 perfume ads, 5 about perms, 5 about relationships, 15 related to food and cooking, and then 5 about relationships. And all of those ones about relationships were pretty much how to please your man, how to understand your man, how to help your man. Meanwhile, in here, the most drastic difference that I noticed flipping through was obviously a larger variety of body sizes, skin colors, gender identity, sexual orientation, etc. There were only 4 perfume ads in here. Nothing about smoking, nothing about alcohol compared to quite a bit. Like I showed you before, there were 3 articles in here about books. There was actually, I think, 6 across all of these, which was great to see. One of them was actually like a multi-page spread all about what to read. There were 7 different ads and articles about travel. Meanwhile, like none, maybe 1 in here. There were also 6 ads about pets or articles related to pet care, how to love your pet, and none in 1985. There was again 15 about food, whether it was just an ad for something, some treat to buy, or how to cook something. We also covered topics in here about prison, pregnancy, friendship, racism, beauty pageants, things that I didn't see back then. I think my next goal though is to flip through some of those articles, the things that were recommended to eat and watch and live like a full proper day as a 1985 woman. Let me slip into something more comfortable though, and then we'll check back in. Okay, the chunky knit, big graphic sweater is here to have her moment. The weather is cool. I'm ready to snuggle up with a book and a movie and my Del Monte sliced peaches. I actually like love canned peaches and always have, but I also haven't had them in so long. So shout out to Cosmo for making this happen. Oh my God, it matches my sweater. Nice. I've been listening to my 1985 playlist all morning. I went through like a bunch of songs from 1985 and only put ones that I actually like on it. And it's full of so many wins, including like genuinely 3 of my all-time favorite songs. Notorious by Duran Duran, Stay by Oingo Boingo, and Your Love by The Outfield is my favorite song. So the fact that I somehow picked a year, and maybe this would happen every year if I had picked anything else, that I have favorite songs from every single year in existence, but I just think that it's really special that that's what happened. There's also Kiss and AC/DC on the list, REM, Stevie Nicks, David Lee Roth, Running Up That Hill by Kate Bush also came out in 1985, so it's a good year. And as I was listening to that, I have started Men and Owner's Manual by Stephanie Brush. Now, obviously this is satire, it's tongue-in-cheek, it's supposed to be funny, but it is in fact written as an owner's manual, as if a man is a dog. How do you know if you're living with a man already? How do you find a man to live with? And then I'm going to get to sections called The Wielding of Power and Stupid Voices in Our Time. But at the beginning, I was reading a bunch of things about like shopping around and how to figure out if this man is right for you. You should shop for men the way you shop for shoes or puppies or tomatoes. And it's not easy. You can't tell all the important things about a man just by sniffing him or squeezing him or walking him around the block. I'm just interested to know if this is gonna feel of its time or, you know, something that everyone can relate to, even current day. I'm actually in the kitchen because I'm gonna make lunch, and the most boring recipe of all the other boring recipes in here involved buying pre-made pizza dough. I just got these already made rounds. Olive oil, red pepper, chives, and rosemary. And you just bake it and eat it. So I'll give you my review for that in a moment. I spilled my peaches. So I had to add tomatoes and garlic and pepper just to have something else on here. It's just like a basic flatbread. I can't imagine it's going to excite me much. And obviously if I had done it the way that the magazine said, it would have been like more baked into it. Dull. As dull as you'd expect. I've started watching Perfect. Apparently it's about a Rolling Stones, like, what do you call it? Interviewer, journalist, trying to seduce an aerobics instructor. I'm now halfway through my manual of men. There was a section about different men from around the world. What it's like living with an Italian man. What it's like living with a Scottish man, an Arab man. It's just as full of stereotypes as you would expect. But it is supposed to be funny, so I am trying to laugh. Maybe the movie will do that for me though. So I'll check in with you with a review for that. And also I'm gonna start Pet Sematary today. Perfect turned out to be kind of terrible. There was no reason that needed to be a 2-hour movie. Every single scene went on so long, especially the aerobics scenes. Like I was trapped in them, all of the gyrating. I couldn't get out. The acting was also pretty atrocious, except for Jamie Lee Curtis, who's the queen. The concept is like kind of interesting. He has other jobs going on as a journalist, and he's prioritizing certain ones over another, and he's obviously spending time with her, and she has to decide if he's doing it and interviewing her and trying to or start a relationship with her under like for good reason. Can I structure a sentence? She doesn't want to be interviewed and he is getting into a relationship with her. So she's like, is he still trying to interview me? Or is this a genuine connection? And then whatever else. It was long. There were so many side stories that I did not care about. And then I finished Men and Owner's Manual. And I don't know what to rate this. Do I rate nonfiction like this very often? No. Did I laugh? Admittedly, a little bit. In this section where she talked about sleeping together, she talked a lot about snoring and then went on to talk about how men need more sleep than women. And she goes, most women do not realize that sleeping men are a great natural resource and right under our collective noses too. You can get a man to do almost anything by talking to him while he's asleep. Most women who have lived with men a long time realize that not talking to men while they are asleep is a waste of valuable time. So what if they can't hear you? When men are asleep, they don't interrupt. They don't say, whose moronic idea was that? Your mother's? They can't walk out of the room. They can't accuse you of never discussing it with them first. They can't roll their eyes in disgust. The section I like the most was called Role Models, and because I like books about media, each of these little paragraphs was a guide to living together from like a couple from TV. There were ones I'm not familiar with, but there was also like Fred and Wilma Flintstone and how they get along in their relationship and like what they care about. This was a very stupid time. I gained nothing as expected. I need this video to be over. I'm currently reading Pet Sematary. I actually grabbed the audiobook and I'm like 3/4 of the way through it already. And it's weird because it's not as scary as I remember. I probably though read this when I was 13, I'm guessing. And at one point in my life, I would have told you this was the scariest Stephen King, the scariest that I have read. We're following this guy and there's like this burial ground, which is questionable, and all the people there bury their pets there, hence Pet Sematary. There is a horrific thing that happens within the family in the book, and then the cemetery becomes more of the plot because this man decides to bury something there to see what will happen. He is like pushing his family away, trying to figure out like the secrets of this supernatural force. And other than that, it's just like a lot of kind of mundane activities in the town and talking to various people and connecting, and weird things are happening. I'm liking it enough. It's very detailed. It's very atmospheric. I do think it would be better suited as a novella though. Maybe because I've read a couple other stories similar to this that were novellas and they were very effective. The idea of trauma and grieving and the supernatural situation, it's just something that could be a little bit quicker, though perhaps you wouldn't feel that sense of dread as much if it wasn't dragging out these scenes full of super vivid imagery. I'm gonna wrap it up. I'll update you in the morning. We'll see if I can read Full Circle also tomorrow. Full disclosure, I'm filming 4 different videos at the same time right now. This one is the least interesting. I finished Pet Sematary. Don't mind my hair, I haven't curled it today. I bought a dehumidifier and it's doing great things for the moisture in here and the potential mold, but it's wreaking absolute havoc on my hair. It's so dry. So I've been doing some hair masks as recommended by my hairstylist, but it's not doing anything for me yet. If you have a brand you would recommend, let me know. Anyway, oh, actually, listen to this. It's just like fun to walk around making this noise. I found it at Value Village months ago and I forgot I was gonna wear it for this video because it feels a little, especially with the color coordination, a little jacquet. I am sticking with my 4-star that I have this listed as on Goodreads when I first joined Goodreads and I logged all of the Stephen King. A lot of Stephen King upon reread is a 4-star. Only a few have become a 5 or remained a 5. I think Carrie's the only one that comes to mind. I do actually, in fact, now that I've gotten to the end, stand by it being one of his scariest things. It's really fun on audio. The exploration of grief and how multifaceted it is and how it makes you do things you wouldn't normally do was really well explored. The relationships were great. I do think it's a little long still, but I would definitely recommend it to people, especially if you think it's just one thing. Like you go into this book thinking, okay, so there's like this evil cat, like how great could it be? It actually has a lot more going on, and I think it was well done. Now my last book of the video, I don't know where I put, yes I do. I put the cover right here. My last one is Full Circle by Danielle Steele, which is my first Danielle Steele ever, never even cracked open a page. And I was fully prepared to kind of skim it, to just get, like if I wasn't super into it, I was just gonna get through it or DNF it, and I was okay with that at this point in the video. But I'm halfway through almost, and I quite like it. At least I feel very invested in what's going on. So it kicks off with this woman and her husband goes off to war and dies, and she is left alone and pregnant, and she has this baby. But then it quickly turns into the story of that child now as a fully grown woman, or really becoming an adult at the beginning of this book. There's like a debutante ball, and there's her going off far from home and deciding if she wants to go to college, which she definitely does. But actually her whole story kicks off. We get to know her in a moment of horrifying circumstances. I saw the first review on Goodreads of this says that it's enjoyable and lighthearted, and I just don't feel like that's how I would describe it. It opens with this horrifically detailed rape scene, and Tana, our main character, I imagine who's going to be the main character throughout the book, maybe it's multiple generations, I have no idea, but it's her having to regularly encounter this guy now in life because he is related to someone her mother is involved with, Her mom is Jean. Her mom didn't believe her that the assault took place, and now she's like constantly coming into contact with this guy. But at the point that I'm at, we just met this man named Harry, and Tana is getting involved with him. They're starting out just as friends, but I imagine it's going to turn into a romantic connection. It's very much Rory and Logan vibes, and I'm eating it up. The time period and location that we're in is also dealing a lot with racism, and they're going to like see speeches from Martin Luther King Jr. and she is friends with like the only black girl at school, and she's talking about how it's just as hard for her to be friends with a black girl as it is to be the black girl in the school, which was very weird. But I guess she just interprets people treating her a certain way, and certain, from her family's perspective, she will not have certain opportunities if she goes to various protests and speeches, aligns herself with this individual. So I don't know where the story is going from here. I don't know if we're gonna get to see this relationship fully develop, or we're gonna get to see her in the future, or they have children. But I think if I really buckle down, I could probably get through this in the next like hour and a half and just tell you my final rating before I leave for the weekend. So wish me luck, though I'll see you in 5 seconds and you'll know if I succeeded or not. Well, unexpectedly, I've completely changed my tune since the last time I spoke to you. The second half of this, I did not like. It was told at breakneck speed. I guess this is just what naturally is gonna happen when you want to write somebody's entire life story into a novel. Like, you need to do some build up and character work and introduce like a relationship or friendship that you feel really passionately about. And then to get through the next couple decades, you only have a couple pages for each year. So it was like somebody would die and 2 sentences later, they'd be joking around about something else. 2 people would profess their love for each other, and literally a paragraph later, they would each be in completely different relationships and like have somebody pregnant. I think I counted 8 different relationships that she was in this chunk of the book. She was like, oh, I just fell in love with this guy. Oh, I'm gonna get married to this guy. Oh, maybe I should fall in love with this person. Who's the right one for me? Is my job more important than him? Does he want kids? Blah, 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 blah. I don't think there's anything like objectively wrong with it. It's just not the type of story that I'm interested in, and I didn't know that. And the first half could not have prepared me for how much time we were going to follow this character. Wow, I'm sorely disappointed. I can't believe how much my mood has completely shifted just in a couple hours. Not that I was loving it, but I was intrigued. And not that I thought it was gonna be a romance, but I just fell in love with this dynamic, and then what a time. I didn't see this video going any other direction. Like, I didn't think I was gonna end up with a 5-star by the end of it. It was just a funny experiment. But I read some silly satire. I read a 3-star romance. I read a couple 2-star experiences following women. I read a family soap opera that I gave a high 3, and I solidified my 4-star for Pet Sematary. I didn't end up trying this one out, but I'm happy to have gotten my recommendations from a magazine. I don't think I would ever do this again, but if I were to, what year would you like me to explore next? There have been book subscription things since like the 70s. I have some 70s Playboys that I could skim through and see if there's any books. But is that a good idea? I'll see you later. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if, I don't know, you've read any of these or you have any other books that you wish I had read instead. And I'll see you soon with another one.